Let's Hi, everybody. This is Kathy L. Murphy, and I feel like the Eureka Tornado, which was the mascot when I was a kid, because I have been flying back from Tyler, Texas, doing all these medical things today, and everything ran over. But tonight, we have a very special guest. We have Grace Sammon, who is here with her wonderful book, The Ewes. And I am excited because, first of all, she has such organizational skills that she has put up every blog for the week on the Pulpwood Queen presents her picks, and they're wonderful. And I just want to welcome you, Grace. Hi.
Kathy, this is like the biggest honor. Thank you so much, especially at this time where you've got so much else going on. So thank you for having me, and thanks everybody for hanging in. Well, Kathy just needed a few more minutes.
Well, I couldn't get out of this appointment. It was with my surgeon today. So, and they told me 10 minutes with the surgeon, but they didn't tell me I was meeting with the dietitian, the nurse, all getting all these vitamins, having to go to a pharmacy. I mean, okay, enough about that. I'm ready to go. And so, Grace, we welcome you to our Tuesday night book club, and look at all these authors here tonight turning out for you. Mary Mary, sorry. We have Lovelace Cook, we have Kathleen Rogers, we have Ruthie Landis, we have Robert Gwaltney, we have Kathy Ramsberger, we have Barbara Conroy, and Elizabeth Summer Waffler must be a friend of yours. Is that a friend of yours?
She's an author and a podcaster.
Fantastic. Glad to have you here, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
And we're recording this. It will all be downloaded on the Kathy L. Murphy channel after this is over. But first, what we like to do, and everything is very spontaneous with the Pulpwood Queen. What we like to do is we like to know, before we talk about your book, we like to know a little bit more about Grace. We want to know, what were you like as a kid? I mean, were you a voracious reader? What made you decide to become a writer? How did this all begin, Grace? Let us know.
I was adorable.
Of course you were.
Of course I was. The first book that I really fell in love with, my brother Bob gave me on Christmas Eve, and it was Anne Sewell's Black Beauty. I must have been 9 years old. And I remember sitting next to the heat vent, like I was like the little match girl or something. And trust me, there was no need to be next to the heat vent, but I just sat there. I missed Christmas dinner. I sat and I read Black Beauty, and I don't know if I read it in one sitting, but it felt like that. So that was my first book that I totally fell in love with. And then my grandmother used to bring me Nancy Drew books. And the older people will remember they were blue, but they had paper covers originally. And then they turned into the really fancy covers that were all color. And my grandmother would bring them to me as they were published. And then I was so startled years later when I found out that there wasn't a Carolyn King, that there were like a bunch of men sitting in a room writing Nancy Drew books. So I wasn't popular. I read a lot, and I was never going to write a book. I always wrote as part of every single job I ever had, but I was never going to write a book. And I had created an organization called the National Career Academy Coalition. And it was a group focused on creating high school improvement throughout the country. And my business partner at the time said, "You need to write a book about this." And I was like, "I can't write a book." And then I did. And then I wrote 4 more. So that's how I got into writing.
That is so cool. Now, has this always been a full-time job for you? I know that you started this coalition, or have you had other jobs going on while you've been writing these books?
Oh, always. I always wrote articles and things like that through each of whatever my job happened to be. But when I created the National Career Academy Coalition, that was the first book. And that's when I really understood that people thought writers were somebody different than all of us who just happened to be sitting in this room. I remember going to a conference and I was the keynote speaker, and people were carrying my book going, "That's her." And I just thought that was hysterical. I kept looking over my shoulder going, "Who is that?" So I always had other jobs. And still now, I think, as everybody in this room, Robert's the prime example of that maybe, but every single one of us works on so many different levels in this author work.
Yeah, well, it's always interesting. Of the hundreds and hundreds of authors that I've interviewed for book club and for this in the 23 years, every single author says, I had a hard time admitting I was an author. And I go, if you're published, you're an author, you're an author. And if you're writing for magazines and everything, you're a writer too. So we are excited about your sharing your story. Now, this is your fourth book, and it is, where did you get the idea for this book?
I think, Kathy, every place I ever wrote was because I was trying to puzzle something out. So in the first three, I was trying to figure out how to improve high schools. And in the area of education, we talk about starting with the end in mind. I knew what I wanted high schools to look like, so I backward mapped. So some of the people in this room are educators, and they would resonate with that. With the Ewes, I knew what I wanted retirement to look like, or what I would like my world to look like, but it didn't look anything like that. So I created the world I wanted and backward mapped from there.
And I've heard that too. I remember talking to Cassandra King, which was Pat Conroy's wife, who's a fantastic writer. In fact, I think I picked her more than any author in all of our Pulpwood Queen years, like 6, maybe 7 times. But she said when she wrote her books, that she just, wanted to tell the story the way she wanted it to go rather than the way life really is. And I think that's interesting because you I never really thought about it until she said that to me. But we all want to have resolution or a happy ending too. But, and nothing makes me madder than a book leaving with no, what just happened? And they either set you up for a sequel or leave such a shocker that you're just like, no way, how did this happen? But what I look for is a story that hasn't been told. So for those that are going to be watching on our YouTube channel, just give us a little synopsis in your words about what your book's about.
Well, I love to be in the same sentence even as Cassandra King. So thank you for putting me in a sentence with Cassandra King. And I think I have been very fairly accused, though, Kathy, of having my book end with the "oh no." Mary Helen Sheriff is going, "oh yes," and Barbara Conry. So yeah, I've been definitely accused of the "oh no" at the end, even though I think I get us all to an okay place after the big "oh no." So the story of the Ewes is about the very psychologically complex Jessica Barnett. She is a hot mess, as my friend Julie Valerie would say. She is almost 60. She's lost her role as mother to her grown children. She has lost her role as daughter. She's let her career go, her life go, but not her vodka and not her lies. and until she has a very bossy friend who says, "you are hiding from the world," and this hiding from the world stops today. And the way it stops is that she meets a group of older women who have decided to leave their mark on the world and not go out with a whimper. And as she starts telling their oral histories, everything changes.
And that is such an important story that really hasn't been told before, because we're all supposed to just ease out of this world gently, and I hate that word retirement, because people go, "now that you're retired," and I go, "retired? I work harder now than I've ever worked in my life. And I actually made more money when I was first out of beauty school doing hair than I do now." So, but the important thing to know is that if you do something and you lead your life in a way that you're passionate about, sharing your story or doing the things that you've always wanted to do, that's really what it's all about. It's not about the McMansion and the big bank account and the big car and I belong to the country club, whatever. It's really about this, all of you, I mean, I've thought about a lot today as I was sitting in this doctor at the hospital, sitting at the, waiting for all these results. And I thought, if everything ended today, I would be very happy because I have got the best friends in the world. You all were sending me messages today, and you really don't have to do that. The reason why I share it is because people try to hide they have diabetes. And I think that the more we try to hide mental health problems, diabetes, whether we have cancer, the more we bring conversations forth, the more we can learn from the experience of it. And that's what we're doing. We're sharing each other's stories, especially yours. I mean, it's a great book, and we want everybody to go back and read all your other ones. But what is the biggest lesson you think you learned from writing this book?
Oh, well, first of all, my son always tells me I'm a really bad example for retirement, which I think is great because he laughs. He just turned 40, and he was like, "You're such a bad example for retirement." And I hope, Kathy, you and me and Lovelace and Barb Conry here, we won't, everybody but maybe Mary and Robert, because they're young. I think we are phenomenal examples of what retirement can be. And I think that's what I learned. The subtitle of my book is When Our Stories Are Told, Everything Changes. And, you're sharing your story with us as you lead up to this surgery. And I know you're going to share it afterwards, not because you want us to say you're great, but because we need to learn from this journey too. And whether it's mental health or another kind of journey, I think it's important that we share, because when we listen to each other, when our stories are told, we all become better people. And I think that for me, getting to your question about what my biggest takeaway is, I think if I'm 100% honest, I wrote the Ewes because I thought I was done. I was done my job. I wasn't going to be traveling around I was traveling 200 days a year, 32 states. I don't even, I remember sitting in the Houston airport one day, looking up at the board, having no idea where I was supposed to fly.
Oh,
and
wow.
Zero idea. And I just, I was like, okay, it's a Friday. Maybe I'm going home, but am I doing that workshop in Whitby, Washington this weekend? I couldn't remember. So I think that I was done. And what I didn't realize until the book came out and I was gifted with these wonderful opportunities to do interviews. I was interviewed by a woman named Dr. Gail Carson.
Yeah.
And she interviewed me. She loved the book. And she called me the next day and said, "Oh my God, you have to have a radio show." And I was like, "I can't do that. I'm done." And she said, "Did you read your book?" And I went, "Oh yeah, I actually wrote my book." She said, "You're not done." So I think even though that's the message of the book, I needed somebody to hit me over the head with my book to realize I'm not done.
And that's what we're all doing here tonight too, is we're all sharing each other's stories to support. We're golden girling it, is what I call it, where we all are in support of each other, of sharing our passions and sharing our stories, because we are the only animal on this planet that actually shares our stories. And I think it's what makes us human. And when you stop, like COVID stopped us all, and then we all figured out the Zoom thing, but it was very isolating, and it made us figure out our priorities. Wouldn't you say that's true? I know.
Absolutely. And you'll frequently hear me say that I thought 2 years ago social media was stupid. And now I have very real friends. I can tell you something about everybody here on the screen, and I'm so grateful that they showed up. But I've connected with them in very meaningful ways. And even though some of us are golden girl in it, you've got somebody like Mary Helen Sheriff over here who has taught me so much about social media and book marketing that I think it's, I would never wish this pandemic on this planet again, but it has given us gifts. I never would have shared Clovis, New Mexico with Kathleen, or realized, the gifts that Ruthie brings us every day, or learned about Bollywood the way I do through Lovelace. There's so many people here that has been such a great connector.
It's really fun. And I've told everybody for decades that you pick your own friends. In fact, my best friend from home has just walked in the door behind me. She's being real quiet back here. Heidi Tightscrabber, who is a Pulpwood queen. She's come here to support me. And but I think about her friendship and the friendships that I've made through the book club. They're the ones that are going to last the longest, I do believe, because those of us that invest in sharing our stories, we're giving each other value to our lives and self-worth. So crown yourself. And I guess my only crown I have is I had a lady tell me the other day, she goes, well, I guess you're an old blue-haired lady. And I said, I believe I am. I believe I am. So, but I guess my hair is my crown tonight. But anyway, we're thankful that you're here, Grace, and your blogs are great. I've read all of them already. I'm not going to give any spoiler alerts or anything, but please join the Pulpwood Queen Presents Her Picks blog, comment, because when it's your turn, you're going to want these people talking to you. And I love how all the authors review each other's books, and it's just such a great thing. So, if you're out promoting literacy, I'm all for it. So, Grace, I'm going to open this up to everybody because all of you are, I know you're dying to ask Grace a question or make a remark. So raise your hand if you have something you want to say. What?
I do.
Yay, Kathleen, thank you.
Okay, so in case anybody wants to know the Clovis, New Mexico connection that Grace and I have, Grace grew up on Long Island. Her dad was what, CBS News or CBS Radio?
CBS Radio and then TV and then ABC. It's
right. And I read that in our anthology, The Work in Progress, and I was so impressed. But one day we were chit-chatting and something came up about Clovis, New Mexico, and you guys, Grace has eaten at the steakhouse across from the railroad tracks in Clovis, New Mexico, and she's probably smelled the stockyards while she was enjoying that steakhouse.
So Clovis is this big, right?
Yeah.
And Kathleen's from Clovis. And when we stopped in there, we did a cross-country trip, my husband and I, from LA to Florida. And we stopped at the Billy the Kid Museum, which I can't remember where it is.
Fort Sumner.
We're in Sumner, right?
Fort Sumner, and that's the real Billy the Kid, not the one they claim in Texas.
It's the real one.
Right.
And we said, we've got reservations in Clovis, New Mexico. We pulled into this Hampton Inn, and the guy said, we'll give you earplugs. We're reducing the price of the room because 75 trains a day go through here. And my husband was like, oh, good. Can we be like right across from the train tracks? And it's this, and truly the best steak, the longest salad bar I've ever had in my life. And I don't know, Kathleen gets to go back there and get awarded things all the time because she's such a fabulous author. But yes, so and the real reason that happened is because I went to school with a Kathleen Rogers and I thought she might be the same Kathleen Rogers, but she's not.
That's wild. All
Yes.
these connections, they're just amazing to me that you don't think you have a connection and then you do. It's just wonderful. I learned so much from every single time the authors speak to us, even though they've spoke at Girlfriend Weekend or been to our book club meetings before. Every time they speak, you learn a little something new. Wouldn't you find that true? Don't you find that true? I know, Grace, you're doing lots of interviews and things. You always learn something new.
Oh, absolutely true. And I love this author community. And, Robert's over there being the strong silent type, but he just wrote this amazing book. If people haven't read The Cicada Tree, it is phenomenal. And Claire Fullerton doing the voiceover. Is she going to narrate it by any way? Or do you have a audiobook, Robert?
So no, that's something that we might consider doing, but since it's just so new, and I'm brand new, I think we were just going to wait a little while to see. But I think she'd do an awesome job. So I have a couple of comments. I have a comment and a question.
Okay.
So first of all, I appreciate all that you do, Grace, supporting the author community, being a part of the Pulpwood Queens, being on board with Mary on Bookish Road Trip, and then of course the work that you do on the storytellers. And so the moment that I knew that I really liked you was when we were getting ready to tape the episode of the storytellers, and you did your opening and you flubbed it, and you let out this magnificent expletive. I said, I like.
Did you say this S word?
I'm not going to tell.
No.
I'm not going to tell what she
That
said.
wouldn't have been it.
But it was. But I'm like, oh yeah, she used my favorite word. I like her.
Okay, message me later and tell me what that was.
So it was
Okay.
great. So I had a blast. It was such a wonderful experience, and I do appreciate you taking a chance on a debut author who's just trying to get started and get their work out into the world. It means a lot. So thank you for that. So
My pleasure.
with the work that you do on the storytellers, what would you say that you've learned most about yourself as a writer from talking with other writers?
Oh, that is such a great question because I get so humbled. There are times where I think I should never write another word. I am confident in my writing. I've written 4 books. It's not that I don't think I'm a solid writer by any means, but I read certain books, and some of you are here tonight, and I just think I should never write another word. It's very humbling to see when words come together magically on a page. You can be a solid writer, but then there is a difference. And Robert, I'm just going to use your example. You have a scene where Annalise is driving up the driveway to the mansion, and you describe it with the way the light is coming through and how the tires are sounding. And I would say something like, so we drove up the road to the mansion. So I think that I have re-embraced the power of words in a different way. I know that I read differently. I don't get a chance to read as much as I would like. I've been trying to be on hiatus. As some people know, that actually hasn't worked out very well. But I've given myself the gift of reading for the last 6 weeks, and I'm plowing through books, and it is a delight to have that gift. So what I have learned from being a writer is humility, which I think everybody here has, in a very sincere way. I think also the power that our words have and the gift we give. But I also have learned that whether I'm working with a debut author, which is I want the storytellers to be a place where I have a debut author. And I've had Nobel Peace Prize winners on my show. I've had New York Times bestsellers. I had somebody who created a science that never existed before. And I tuck that into the storytellers by saying she's telling the Earth's story. I had one of my favorite singers, Dr. Yase Barnwell from Sweet Honey in the Rock out of DC. Her memory is now going. We practice so hard ahead of time. If you read my book, there's a coda and an overture, and she wrote the words to those, and I have those songs on my website. So when she and I were practicing, because she wasn't comfortable with the technology, I said, one of my favorite songs, Dr. Barnwell, is Teaching Memory, Having Memories to Teach Me. And it's this amazing song that my daughter sang at my mom's casket. And it says, please and thank you taught me so much. You told me, you used to rock me in the cradle of your arms, and now you're gone, and now I need you. And I asked her if she could sing that for me in our practice sessions. And we get on the air together, and you can, if you listen to that, which is one of my favorite episodes, you can see she's struggling with some cognitive issues. And at one point I say, so Dr. Barnwell, can you sing the song for me? And she starts, and she forgets the words. and I start singing, which is something you never really want to hear. And she starts singing with me. So I want the storytellers to be a place where we can tell our stories, whether we're a famous singer or a Nobel laureate, or you just started your first book. And as the show gains in popularity, I'm really lucky. We're booked out through the first of the year. It's harder to balance those things, but I'll always do that. Long answer, Robert.
Oh, perfect. Thank you so much.
It's really perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else want to chime in?
Sarah.
Okay, I'm sorry I'm late. A friend kidnapped me to the lake for a swim, so I just got back. But
I'm glad you're here. Thank you for coming.
I was so looking forward to meeting you on Zoom. And you may have covered this already, but I just want to say how much I'm about halfway through the Ewes. I got late starting on it, and just fascinated with the way you've created this community. And, it's all this environmentally balanced and so much information, but the beautiful idea of the Ewes, the 9 Ewes, and they're all our ancestors coming forward. And I guess I asked you online if this was a real place because I wanted to go, but you created an amazing fictional entity. So I just want to thank you for that.
Oh, thank you. Stay in touch with me as you continue to read.
I will.
Because it has a few plot twists and turns.
Oh, I can see those coming. I'm up to Africa and I'm going, oh boy.
Well, that's a very interesting chapter, Sarah, because I love the 2 chapters on Africa. And people either love those 2 chapters or go, those totally don't fit at all in your book. Why did you throw them in? So I always like it when somebody says, oh, I like those 2 chapters on Africa.
Yeah, it made me think of my own novel, Pause. That's, a Pulpwood title coming up later, but I did the same thing. My heroine is on a journey midlife, and it's mostly, at home, but then she goes off to Central America for 2 chapters. And it was just like, I'm going, do people think this doesn't fit? But it was important. Yeah.
Welcome to the storyteller.
Ooh, somebody's listening to my show.
Okay.
Wow, that's cool.
That's funny.
That's kind of neat.
Yeah, that was funny. Welcome to the storytellers. I also do voiceovers. That's another thing. I think everybody here would be able to say that their books open doors for them in ways that they never ever anticipated. Kathy, you're always so clear about how books saved your life. And if we look at how books have changed I would have never thought I had a radio show. I wouldn't know that I would be doing voiceovers for other authors. Mary Helen Sheriff and I are launching a new radio show coming up in August called Launchpad, specifically for authors as they debut their books.
Yes.
So we're super excited about that. I think our books take us to places. I'm working on an article right now, loosely titled Changing Your Life One Podcast at a Time. But it's really one book at a time, one opportunity at a time. Ruthie would probably speak to that. We have to know there's so many doors that appear closed to us that, we can push open. And there's so many opportunities that are just there for us.
One of the things that happens to me is when I sleep, I dream up things. And the first thing when I wake up, I go, I got to do that. Sometimes they weren't meant to be. I'm just going to be honest. Sometimes, what was I thinking? But at the time, some of my best ideas have come in. Do you have that happen to you? Do you have things come to you in your subconscious, in your dreams?
Absolutely. And I'm so grateful for that. My 3rd book was called Battling the Hamster Wheel, Strategies for High School Reform. And I had no idea how it was going to end. And I went to bed one night and the last 2 chapters were written the next morning. So I was very grateful for that. I wish that would happen more with my current thinking about a novel, but not so much.
Well, maybe you need to take a nap. That's what I do when I get stuck. Everybody goes, writer's block. I go, just go take a nap. It'll come to you. It always does to me. So anybody else want to make a remark? Ruthie, we've talked about this a lot with dreams and things. And do you want to share a little bit of thought about that for you?
I don't think it's something we can force. We can make it intentional. You know, I know when I'm doing a workshop, I'll go to sleep and I'll say, okay, give me the download, please. And I wake up usually at 3 in.the morning and, it'll come, those kinds of things. But I do think that things come in waves. I mean, I just don't think it's ever about forcing it. And the unconscious seems to reveal to us as we're, in perfect timing. So, when you said, oh, it told you to do something and you shouldn't have done it. And I might challenge that a little bit, what was the bad thing about doing it? Like if you don't have if you're not thinking about the outcome or what it should be like, then why not follow that energy a little bit? So yeah, I've come to see that my last book, my musings, is about the Chinese 5 element theory and the seasons and the seamlessness between people and human beings and nature and the seasons and our organs and everything. And one thing that I know is that creativity comes in seasons, right? And so sometimes we're down under in the water and we're germinating, like in the womb, and things are just waiting to get ready to be born. And then the spring comes and, it's ready to push through. But if you're in the water, you're in the water. And, like Jung called that the fertile void. So a fertile void, think of it. It's a void, but it's full of life waiting to be born. So I think it's about our ego, not, interpreting our blocks as blocks. It's just, oh, I'm in the fertile void right now. And at some moment it's going to shift.
For those listening later on YouTube, I want to tell you that Ruthie is a psychotherapist. So, all of these things where she's referring to all these different philosophies and things is brought into her books. And they're absolute. I read every one of your blogs every day. I try to read as many of you guys and share as many as I can. But, as a member, you can always post every day on the official website. So post it, and as soon as I see it, I'll approve it. So, because you're members. Kathy, you had something you wanted to say.
Thanks. Grace,
Hey, Kathy.
I've done the verboten and skipped around in your book, but I will read it from beginning to end at some point. And I felt like the Africa part was absolutely necessary. Of course, I've lived in Africa, so maybe that's part of it. But I felt like there were changes in every single place, and that the places represented whatever change was going on within. Mm-hmm. So I loved the Africa chapters. I also wanted to say, you lived in Maryland or DC? Because of the Maryland connection to the book. That's why I'm asking.
I lived outside of Washington, D.C. in Silver Spring, Maryland, in the Kemp Mill area.
Oh, you were in Silver Spring. Okay.
And you were in the same area, right?
I'm in Bethesda.
Right. So the scene where Jessica is with Adam in Wheaton Regional Park, that was very easy for me to write. It was 10 minutes from my house. And the house that Jessica lives in is actually the house that my daughter lived in college. And we always talked about refurbishing it. So I just said, we might as well just do it in the book.
Yeah, it really, there are not a lot of books written about Maryland. And there's one about Rockville Pike. Have you read that one?
I have not.
I've forgotten the title of it, but there's something about reading a book about a place where you feel like you've lived so much of your life. And I really appreciated that. Considering how much you travel, it could have been any place. So thank you for Maryland.
Oh, well, you're welcome. And one of the things that is everything in the book is true in terms of factual things. So there's several scenes where Jessica's out on her roof, and she lives in Northwest Washington, just a stone's throw from the from the White House. And she goes out on her roof at night, and you really can hear the lions roar from the Washington Zoo. And it's just amazing. And the wind has to be coming a certain way, but to sit there in the middle of a city on a quiet city street and to hear the lions roar is very, very cool. People think that I make that up, but that was very real.
That is so cool. That is so cool. People don't realize how close it all is either. And
It's a very small town.
yeah, it is. Thank you. I'm enjoying it.
Oh, thank you, Kathy, so much for being here tonight.
Yeah, thank you all so much for being here. So if you were going to give some advice to a young person that's thinking about becoming a writer, what is the first thing you'd tell them to do?
Oh, I think it would be the same thing I'd say to anybody, which is know why you're writing. And that's a hard answer. Are you writing for yourself because you want a journal, which I think has just as much value if you want to write and become a New York Times bestseller? Everybody here would love their book to be turned into a Netflix series. That would be really nice. But I think that it's the knowing why you want to write then really helps with the trajectory of what else you're doing. I would also, and I don't give advice often. There's a woman named Amy Ferris who's a playwright and a screenwriter, and she was on the Storytellers, and she's just lovely. She's head of Story Summit up in Santa Fe and several other places, and she has sent several people my way asking me to do Storytellers, and two of the people that she sent are 14-year-old girls who have published multiple books. So I'm not going to tell anybody anything. I'm sure they will be outwriting many of us very shortly.
I think what is important to tell young people is growing up in a small town in Kansas, I thought you had to be like from New York City to become an author until my teacher started reading Laura Ingalls Wilder. And I go, wait a minute, Laura Ingalls Wilder is written about, where I live, and she's not from New York City. And it just it planted a seed. And, she didn't even start writing her stories until she was, I think, 59, which I think is also important to tell. That's why when I was back in Jefferson, I'd always try to take as many authors as I could to the schools, because there's a lot of jobs besides being a writer in publishing. There's podcasting, there's publicist, there's editor, there's a lot of things, but I don't think we learn about those careers much. Do you? Would you?
No, and I used to be, although most of my work in education was in high schools, excuse me, I had a short contract for maybe 3 years where we were doing career development in middle schools. And we would write these curriculum, and they were wonderful. They were called discovery-based learning. And one of my favorite discoveries in that was that if you ask anybody, a middle school age child, what are the jobs at a hospital? They're going to tell you doctor and nurse. They're not going to know about the accounting and the phlebotomists and the x-ray technicians. They're just not. So we did this study with middle school kids, and we took it across careers. One was the hospital example. One was we asked at zoo about zoos, because we have this amazing zoo in Washington, D.C., which I just mentioned. So we asked what were the jobs at a zoo, and they went like zookeeper and popcorn seller. And then we would take the kids to these behind the scenes tours of hotels, zoos, and they would have like a list of 30 careers at the end of it. You go to a hotel and you get maid and front desk person. You don't get all the nuances that, the caterer, the PR person. So I think that's very true, Kathy, what you say about our industry, whether it's podcasting, I didn't know, and I come to this so naively, I didn't know what a TBR or a WIP was 2 years ago. I would just smile and nod. I think it was actually on a bookish road trip where somebody asked me, was I a pantser or
Yeah.
and I had zero.
I had no idea. When I first heard that, I had no idea what they were talking about either. What is it, a pantser or a plant? Plotter. Yeah.
I had zero idea about what any of that meant. So I think it behooves all of us to help younger authors, newer authors, because they don't have to be younger necessarily, to know these nuances of our profession.
Because, it's more like emerging artists, we're emerging from whether we're 70 or, I think about Leela Meacham, who we lost, to pancreatic cancer, but she didn't write her first book until after a career of teaching. She started her first book in her 70s. And she wrote how many, 5? That just kind of blows my mind,
Well, Barbara Conry, when did you write your first book?
I was 70 when it published.
Wow. See, that's the kind of things we need to get out there into the world so people understand that once you become a senior citizen, like I am, that life is not over. For me, it's just begun because I've always wanted to be an artist. And I feel like today a dream came true because I just sent off a painting that's going to eventually be going to Japan. Suzanne Kamada bought one of my paintings and I sent it to her parents' house in North Carolina when she visits so she can put it in her suitcase and take it home. But I thought, never in a million years when I was a little kid when I was, I had a very famous guy who lived in my neighborhood in Kansas that became a world famous bronze sculptor. His name was James Brother. He was the head of the KU art department in Kansas University. But never in a million years would I thought I would have sold a painting that was going to be in a home in Japan. And, I tell that because every one of you is going to have one of these things happen if you just believe in yourself. If you just believe that, the possibilities are endless. We don't have to shut the door thinking, I understand, Grace, when you said, I thought my life was over. I thought the same way when I went through my divorce and then lost my father. And then I just said, nope, not going to happen. I drove over and enrolled in college. So, 43 years later, I graduated. So, and we can lead by example. And that's what all of us are doing. When people read your stories and young people come up to you, what's the most interesting story you've been asked, Grace, since you've been going out and talking to people about your book? Something that may have surprised you, because there's always somebody that'll ask you something that you go, what did I write? You try to remember where it was in the book. Have you had anything like that happen?
Oh, I frequently have had, because once you've had a book, and especially if you keep writing, you're like, I wrote that. That's good stuff, boy. And you don't remember what it is. So yes, that's always really embarrassing to me when somebody brings up something in the book that I don't remember. I think the thing that always surprises me is the way people want to talk about each of our backstories. And I'm always very transparent, but something I don't normally lead with is the fact that I was sexually abused as a kid. And that's been coming up, and I'm not exactly sure why that keeps coming up in interviews I've been given. It's not something I ever lead with. It's I'm a big believer in we turn our scars into stars if we're lucky enough. Not all of us are lucky enough to do that based on, I wouldn't say I'm the most mentally healthy person on the planet, but I was gifted. Oh, Helen Sheriff is laughing at me. But I've been gifted with stability. I have family members who weren't given that gift.
And vodka.
and vodka. Those things have helped. So look at, I have my little vodka bottles right here.
Wow, I'm impressed.
And my little storytellers.
Aw.
But I think those are the things, Kathy, that the stories behind the stories that unite us all.
Well, I want everybody before our next Tuesday night book club meeting to show us those little somethings about you, the precious moments that you have. I'll tell you this, I got a new book in and I've got to share it with you because as I'm going to surgery, I thought, I need to write some of this stuff down. So I got this book. And I got it today and I was so excited about it because I'm going to put all my passwords in there. I'm going to put in all my insurance, so I can give this to my children. But when I opened it up, I thought there would be some prompts. It's a blank book, but it just cracks me up because I'll have everything in it, before I go to surgery. And I just think, the things that you get that bring a little levity to your life, that was one of them. It reminds me of, there was a book years ago where somebody ordered it and it was like the best tips for the best sex ever. And it became a huge bestseller. When they got it, it was a blank book.
I love it.
Oh, that's so funny. I just
That is
think
so
it's funny.
funny.
But do you have something besides the vodka bottles that's precious to you, Grace? That is like
my wooden spoons. There's wooden spoons are big in the book, and some of these are my grandmother's, and both from both sides of my family. And then the other thing that happens is, and I'm sure this has happened to anybody, like when I wrote Battling the Hamster Wheel, people gave me hamsters all of the time. So now when I go be when I do book clubs, people give me wooden spoons. So, but I love all my wooden spoons. They're fabulous.
That's what you should donate for the, now I understand why you sent me all the things you sent me when your book first came to me. But, we always ask all the authors to donate, and whether you're featured or not, but we're trying to help the Pat Conroy Center to autograph something that ties into your book. I remember Janice Owens gave a cast iron skillet for her cracker cookbook and she signed it. So, a wooden spoon would be great.
I'd be happy to do that. I'll put together a set of wooden spoons. That would be awesome.
That would be really awesome. So y'all think about that. Bring them with you when you come. The family dynamic? I'm always curious because nobody in my family would read my book because they said, "Oh, Mom, we've lived it. We don't want to read it again and again and again." So how is your family? How's your husband? What do they think about your writing?
My kids have not read my book, and that's probably not a surprise to me, but they're very impressed with the after book life. Just, the podcasts, the constantly being busy, the working on Bookish Road Trip, which is just a breeze, Barbara, right? And it's not hard at all. It's
especially when you forget what you're supposed to do. I mean,
Barbara forgot
to get your book,
just
Barbara.
Yeah, I needed that. I know.
And I think also, this is a little bit of a digression. One of the things that I think is so important is that we all surround ourselves, every single person in this room is, and, we surround ourselves with really positive people who stimulate our thinking all of the time. Lovelace is always out there giving the love in a post. It's beautiful. And I think that I may not have the answer to in my dreams to my next novel, but, I thought up Launchpad in a second when Mary started talking about how she's starting a book marketing business. And I'm just going to go out there and put it out there. Mary and I are launching a 3-book series with a press that we're going to be announcing coming up shortly. And we're really, really excited about that. And that did come in a dream. I just went, whoa, wait a minute. We're starting a show called Launchpad. We should have a 3-book series called Launchpad. So I don't know where that stuff comes from. And I don't even know where we were going with that.
Well, it's exciting. I mean, anything you can, I think anything that's outside the norm. I mean, when I open my hair salon bookstore, people go, well, which is it?
So brilliant.
Is it a hair salon or is it a bookstore? I go, it happened at the same time. Because what do you do when you go to the bookstore? I mean, I was telling a guy this. I go to the barber shop. He goes, well, if you're waiting, you pick up a magazine and you read. And I go, exactly. And people, women, their hair's processing, they're reading their book. It just made sense to me. For years, I would talk books up and loan books and never get them back. And I thought, well, that's stupid. It's supposed to be a business, you know? So when my sister goes, what am I going to do after I lost my job as a book rep? She goes, well, why don't you go back to doing hair? And I go, you know, I became a hairdresser, put myself through college, and I'm still not there. And she goes, well, then do the book thing too. And, you know, I don't know what it was, but I thought, wait a minute, you mean sell books, have authors in? You know, I love to sit down with people when I read their books and say, how are you marketing this? And Mary, you're going to learn all about this if you're going to be marketing. What is something that you can do that nobody's ever done before? And it's when you do something that is entertaining, because reading is the best entertaining in the world, you do that. So, you know, if it's you banging on a drum with your wooden spoons to get people on board, I think people love the quirky, and there's nobody quirkier than me. So, and you know why so many people have stuck with me through the long haul. But I do believe that it's thinking outside the box. Because I always tell people I'm one cat that doesn't like to sit in the box.
But Kathy, that's also, people stick with you because you have helped create an environment that is supportive. You know, when I first started in this work, I was directed to a couple of places, and Pulpwood Queens was one of them. And I think you and I were on the phone after like an email. I timidly wrote, hi, I just wrote a novel. How would I ever talk to anybody? And you were like, oh, here's my phone number. You know, and I think that, and I tell this story on Mary Helen Sheriff all the time. I didn't know even what a Facebook group really was. And I call it sucking up. Now, we keep on trying to, I try to come up with a nicer term, but at the end of the day, it was like, hi, I really love Bookish Road Trip. Hi, I really liked your post. And, you know, it's those skills that we learn, but ultimately, if we create the positive comes back to us.
Absolutely.
And I think, you know, that's certainly what you've tried to create here and have successfully created here.
Well, the more you give, the more you get, actually, because, you know, every time I think I'm doing somebody, you know, just a favor or something, then I realize it wasn't me helping them, it was me helping myself. You know, a good example was when the year I spent teaching life writing at a homeless shelter in Longview, Texas. Man, I could write a whole book about that, but I promised that I wouldn't. But I learned more. I did not know what homeless people were until I spent time with them. And I found out they were just like you and me. I mean, they just made a bad choice or a wrong choice. And the next thing you know, they've lost their business, their car, their house. And what do you do? Mm-hmm. It's really scary, you know, but then it's also very freeing. I mean, if you stop worrying about those kind of things, and I'm a big believer in, you put out all the good you can into the world, God takes care of you. He certainly has taken care of me. And if I don't recover from this thing, I want you all to know I'm very happy right now. I am at peace with everything in the world. And I know all of you will champion your causes. So, but I think I'm going to be around for a while. You know, I just kind of have this really amazing good feeling. I got too many people sending me these vibes, you know, so and that's what we have to do. We have to support each other and give each other good vibes, and and recognize that everybody makes mistakes. I mean, I've done some doozies before, and it's usually miscommunication, you know? So the more we talk, the more we share stories, the more we figure things out. And there's, you know, a lot of things have happened to us during COVID. I mean, this isolation has been good for us, but it's also made us, I think, for me, it made me a little bit more paranoid because I really don't have any access to anybody around here. I mean, when I say I'm in the woods, I'm in the woods, but the more I talk to people, and now I'm back out, I'm fine. I'm good. But I think it helps, you know, it was good to have that perspective. And so are we working on another book? We are working on another book, right, Grace?
Well, we're working on the 3 books, which will turn into the Launchpad series. And then I do have another novel, but yeah, I don't know. A good friend of mine said, maybe you're just not there yet. You can't force it. And so I've written the, that person down there. I've written the prologue and I've written the epilogue. We'll see what happens in the middle, but that's how I've written every book I've ever written.
I'm a firm believer that when you have to let this kind of, you know, distill and permeate in your mind. I've been working on a novel for most of my life, and it'll probably be my swan song. Whether it gets published or not, I don't care because I really like the story. I like the story. So, but, you know, maybe it'll be one that comes up after I'm gone. But you just do the things you're passionate about. And collaborations are wonderful. I'm doing it now with other artists, and it's so exciting. I'm so excited. So any other aspects of the book that we didn't address that you want to talk about?
I think just, you know, there in the back of the book, well, first of all, on my website, which is Grace Sammon, which sounds like a fish, but isn't, there are lots of extras. There's book club extras, there's questions, there's recipes, there's music, there's all of that. There's also a series, Jessica is so broken. She writes these life lessons at the end of the book. And some of them are so simple, like, you know, be kinder than you need to be. And she just writes them down because she has to remember those. And I've had book club after book club say, you know, can I get those? I wrote them out. So, you know, you can download those on my website as well. So I think it's, you know, my parting shot is always be kinder than you need to be and figure out how you want to leave your mark on the world.
Exactly. And I always read, you know, the beginning of the books, the blurbs, the inscriptions. I like to read everything. And you do get some nice new surprises in the back when they put in book club discussion questions, which I think is great. But I always ask the authors, did you write your book club discussion questions or did somebody write them for you?
I wrote them.
Thank you. I found that when publishers write them, they're so esoteric and literary that I have no idea what they're asking. And I would read them off and I'd look around the room at the girls and they go, I don't know what that means. And I go, well, honestly, I don't either. Yeah. So we get the author on the horn and we ask her and she goes, I don't know. They just came up with that. Yeah. It just, you know, ask the authors. The authors, they know the questions they want you to ask. And so that's what I love. Thank you for doing that. And you've got your website, www.gracesammon.com.
Net.
Yeah.
.net.
.net. I'm sorry, .net.
That's okay.
And you're also going to be blogging all this week and through Sunday. Thank you. And, you know, it's your week. I mean, I want people to take full advantage of it. And I want everybody to participate because it's always going to come up your turn. And, you know, people remember who supported them and will show up. But there's some of you out there that go beyond the call. And I keep track of all that. I really do. I really do. So thank you, Grace, so much. I'm looking forward to this new Launchpad series and keep me in the loop, Mary, on all this because I'm reading now for 2023. Get your submissions in for In the Kitchen with the Pulpwood Queen with Mandy Haynes. She's madly working on that. And our next work in progress anthology, which is for those that didn't get featured in the first one, we're doing another one. So we're going to have 2 books out in January. And then the magazine, you guys, is amazing. I mean, she's up to
Absolutely.
almost 115,000 in readership now.
It's amazing.
I can't hardly believe it myself. So she's working on that. I'm back and working full time. And my daughters are going to be, they're going to hate this. They hate social media, but they're going to be letting you know how everything's going if I'm just like out of this world. So I will give them access to my computer and they will, or I'll get Heidi too. She'll back me up. So anyway, you guys have a wonderful week. Stay cool. We're in 3-digit weather here and it gets a little scary when it gets this hot. So I'm drinking iced tea like you wouldn't believe. I'm on liquid diet now anyway, so I'm just drinking all the time. So hang in there. And
Thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. Kathy, every single person here sends you Reiki love and magic. And
I love it.
so be well. And every single person here tonight, thank you. Kathy, thanks for tears always.
Oh man, that's a good one. Thank you. Thank you. Get your packages for Girlfriend Weekend. I got an update today. I think our hotel, somebody told me that it's booked. So if you booked your rooms or you haven't, I think now you got to go to the suite. So we're going to fill up really fast and the price goes up August 1st. So tell all your friends, book club members, everybody get your package now. There'll be plenty of time to network. And I got some really good surprises coming up. You guys are going to want to be there. So thank you for joining me. Robert, I will see you live in person with Mandy Haynes in Fairhope, Alabama. We're going to be doing a big event at Page and Palette celebrating their 2 books. And looks like I'm working on I'm going to be back at Southern Festival for the book. So if you're interested in going, I'm going to be doing a panel. Talk to me. So we'll talk to you soon. Have a wonderful rest of your summer. And we'll see you Saturday morning. I'm doing Mama Cat's Book Club live at Art on the Bayou Gallery in Jefferson, Texas. And then Sunday night is our Shah Rukh Khan book club with Tracy Carnes. So we'll see. I got 2 more events before this happens. And then who knows what'll happen after this. So thank you for hanging with me. And I love you all.
Everybody.
And God bless. Thank you. We'll see you next time. It's all about the story. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.